What's up guys, and welcome to the channel. My name's Micah, and today we're going to be adjusting the clutch on our 2024 Kawasaki ZX-6R. So this is an extremely easy process. It's something that you can do yourself in your driveway, in the street, in the garage. This process is pretty much going to be the same on every ZX-6R of all time. Now, a properly adjusted clutch is really important, and it's going to make your everyday riding experience just a ton better. So there's going to be a couple different places that you can adjust the clutch from. You can adjust it from the lever, and then you can adjust the clutch cable itself. So I'm going to walk you through both of those. The only tools that we're going to use for this whole process is just a needle nose. You could use a needle nose, a pliers, a channel locks, just some tool with some sort of grabbing quality to it. And then I also have two 12mm wrenches. That is everything we need for this whole process. So without further ado, let's rip into it. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to do is get your motorcycle to a spot or an area where you have a little bit of room to walk around it and work on it, and then we're going to turn our handlebars all the way to the left. Now we're ready to start. So here we are looking at the clutch lever on our motorcycle. So first I'm going to walk you through the adjustment that you get on the lever itself here, and then we'll go over how to adjust the cable itself. Now you do get this dial here on your clutch lever that you can adjust. It has 5 different positions, but that really just adjusts where your lever sits. It doesn't adjust the amount of slack and play that you have in your clutch and the clutch cable. So how you adjust your clutch play on the lever up here is just going to be with this right here. So this is going to be your adjuster bolt. So you can screw that out and in. That will adjust the amount of play that you have in this lever here. And you get just a little locking nut on this. So to adjust this at the lever, all you're going to have to do is take that pliers or needle nose, whatever you had. You're just going to pinch on this and just loosen that up here. Whoop. So that we can spin that. We'll give it a few threads so our adjuster bolt is nice and loose. So now with that locking nut loose, we are able to turn this adjuster bolt to adjust the play that we get in our clutch lever here. Now the factory amount of play and slack that we're looking for is 2 to 3 millimeters, which translates to 1/10 of an inch. You'll probably be wondering, where do you measure that 2 to 3 millimeters from? You know, 2 to 3 millimeters of play up here in the lever is different than 2 to 3 millimeters at the very end. So where we're going to measure that amount of play is actually with the gap here between the base of our clutch lever and then its metal housing here. So as we just barely put a little pressure on the clutch until we get to kind of that resistance, that clutch wall here, that's where we'll stop. We're just going to measure this gap that's right here, right where the tip of my needle nose is. And so that is where we're looking to have that 2 to 3 millimeters. Now, a really easy way to measure that gap without getting out a minuscule measuring tape is just to use a US nickel. So a US nickel is going to be exactly 2 millimeters thick. So it's going to get us to the tighter end of that 2 to 3 millimeter zone that we're looking for. So as I just open up my clutch here until I come to the resistance where that clutch starts to grab, I'll just put my nickel in here, and you can see that I have about twice the width here of the nickel in that little gap. So we're just going to spin this adjuster out a few threads here until we get about to that 2 millimeters. That's getting pretty close here. Let me put my nickel back in there and see if that fits. Oh, I think that's the one. Just barely. It's a nice snug fit in there. Yep, and so it will hold our nickel in there as well. So that's about perfect. That's about that 2 to 3 millimeters that we were looking for. Now, something you'll want to check at this point is how many threads on this adjuster bolt are left in your lever housing here. So you can kind of get in here and look through this crack, so we can see that we have about 3 or 4 threads on our adjusting bolt left in the housing. That's probably good enough. You know, as long as you have 3 threads left, you know, you could call it good and just tighten your locking nut down here. Put your needle nose on that, get it snug, and then you would be good to go. You have that 2 to 3 millimeters. You have enough threads in that housing left on your adjuster bolt. But that clutch cable just gets stretched out over time. You know, that clutch is actually pretty firm. You know, if you took your clutch lever off and just tried to pull that cable, it would probably take 50 plus foot-pounds of force. I mean, so a lot of force, you know, that cable pulls a lot of weight all the time. And eventually it's just gonna stretch out to where you won't have enough adjustment in that lever, in which case you'll have to resort to adjusting the cable itself, so then you can get more adjustment with your lever. So let me walk you through that really quick. So your clutch cable is gonna snake from the left side. It kind of gets routed through here, and then it comes down to the crank on the right side of your motorcycle. So on this cable here, you're gonna see that it has a little arm here, a little housing that it goes in. Then you have a locking nut up top here, and then one below. Now you can pull this little rubber boot down here and expose the rest of those threads on the base of that cable. So you can see that we get quite a bit of adjustment here, you know, if we wanted to make it tighter or looser. So what we're gonna do here is tighten this cable a little bit so that we have a few less threads showing up here. So we have more threads in the base of our clutch lever so that everything is sturdy, safe, and solid. So now before we loosen up these locking nuts down on our cable, I'm gonna screw our cable all the way in up by the lever here. So you'll always want to have this lever adjustment all the way in before you make adjustments to your cable. So if I wanted 3 more threads, you know, in my housing for my lever, I'm roughly just gonna screw this cable in, screw these nuts in 3 threads worth, and that will directly correlate to the amount of threads that we get back in our lever adjustment. So the best way to do this is just gonna be with 2 12mm wrenches. So I will just hold one of our nuts here with one wrench, and then with the other wrench, I will just loosen that up here. We'll give that one side a few threads. So since we're tightening down our cable here, all I'm gonna do is spin this top nut a little bit tighter here. Sometimes it helps just to pinch and hold that cable as you spin your nut to adjust it here. So we'll just spin this here and give it a few more threads. You could always turn it with the wrench as well if you can't quite get it with your fingers. Now as you're tightening this, you can always reach down here and feel your little clutch arm as well. So the last thing that we want is our clutch too tight in that we have pressure on this at all times. So it's gonna cause your clutch to slip, and then you're gonna burn out your clutch plates. You'll have a world of problems. So now that we've screwed this top adjuster nut down a few threads on our cable, we can tighten up that lower nut here. We'll get our wrenches back out here. Put those on there. Snug that up real slightly. Feels good to me. So we can slide that rubber boot back over the base of that cable there. Everything looks good there. We still have some slack in that arm, so now we're just gonna go back up to our lever and see what adjustment we have there. So now that we're back at our clutch lever, you can see that it's plenty loose right there. So we're just gonna screw out that little adjuster bolt a little bit. As we are feeling our clutch here, we can feel it getting tighter, kind of taking up that slack. Kind of get it roughly to where I think it should be. Probably about there. So I'll take my handy dandy nickel out, and then I will just slip that right back in there, see if it fits. It does. It holds our nickel, so that's about our 2mm mark. I like that a lot. So we'll screw our adjuster, our little locking nut on there. Put our needle nose on that. Just tighten it. You don't have to get crazy tight on this, just good and snug, just enough to hold it in place. So now you can see that we got our clutch back to the perfect factory spec we were looking for. You know, our nickel perfectly fits in. We're sitting at that 2mm again, the same spot that we did have it adjusted, but now you can see that we have less threads showing on our adjuster bolt since we made some adjustments over to the cable. You know, if we look down in our crack here, we have about 3 more threads threads that are in our housing than we had before, and that's because we gave the base of our cable the adjustment over there. We tightened that 3 threads, and so it makes sense that now we have 3 extra threads of adjustment here. Well, and so that's gonna be it, guys. That's all there is to that. You know, your clutch is something that is gonna require periodic adjustments, I guess I'll say. You may adjust it once every year, you may adjust it once every 5 years. But it's really easy, as you guys have seen, and it requires minimal tools. I mean, you could do this yourself in 60 seconds, no problem. Probably in 10 seconds or less if you have enough adjustment left on your lever. And just use your nickel in that gap. Gosh, that's too easy. You know, make sure you always have that 2 millimeters at least of play. You know, the last thing that you want to do is get that clutch too tight into where it's always engaged slightly. So that's just going to cause your gears to be slipping, you know, as you're adding some throttle, adding some power, and it's just going to wear away and burn up your clutch plates. So do not get your clutch too tight. Always have that 2 millimeters at least of play. Otherwise, you will certainly be replacing the entire clutch in your engine. Well, and I think that's all I have for you guys today. That should about wrap it up. So, like the video if this helped you out, subscribe if you guys want to see more, and until next time, have a wonderful night, guys.